Welcome back, everybody, to another little segment of Just Visiting. I am Eric Baumgarten, aka Leif Erikson, and then we got Jonathan Collins over there, also known as He Hulk today. So I like your name. Real quick, today's segment, we're going to talk a little bit about the NBA Finals, and we finally have, as of Saturday, we finally have our two teams that are going to be meeting in the NBA Finals from the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference. Representing the Eastern Conference, we have in an amazing series of 7. We have the Boston Celtics, which is Jonathan's favorite team, if you guys don't know that. But we got the Boston Celtics facing up against well, I'm just kind of tired of them being in the finals, but it's cool. They haven't been there in a while. But we got representing the Western Conference.
It's weird.
Finals.
It's weird that we say they haven't been there in a while when it was like 2 years ago. I was like, okay, It wasn't that long ago.
I guess it wasn't. The bubble kind of threw it off.
Yeah, there's this stat like the Warriors have been in 6 of the last 8 NBA Finals. That's insane. Like this is like Michael Jordan type stuff that we're seeing here.
It's
like,
true. That's true.
This is like, Bill Russell's Celtics when they were like every year they're basically in the finals because it was.
It's the Golden State Warriors, if you guys didn't know that, by the way. But anyways, we're back again. We're going to talk about that real fast. But Jonathan, give me your breakdown, because Jonathan is the local he's the local basketball NBA expert on the Just Visiting channel. So what were your thoughts of how Boston performed in that last game, and they played the Miami Heat in the last game of 7? And then now they're going to the finals, man. When was the last time they went to the finals? Was that with Garnett? That was the last time, right?
2010, man. 2010 was the last time we've been in the finals.
13 years, almost. 12 years. Yeah.
Yeah, man. It's been a long journey. Like, let me start off by saying this. I can't stand that people are like having this narrative that the Boston Celtics haven't been good since 2010. Like, oh, you guys haven't even been to a finals in like 13 years. It's like, LeBron was in our conference. Like, what did you want us to do? We had to literally start from scratch after KG, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, all of them guys aged out and like got old. You have to rebuild your team. You're not going to like go get Paul George or like, some superstar like right off the back. Unless you're the apparently Los Angeles Lakers. But I mean, I don't know that. We have a great tradition. Obviously, like we're one of the most storied franchises in NBA history, if not the most storied franchise. But I mean, Boston is Boston. It's a cold place to live. It's not like it's completely hospitable, right? It's like they aren't like the nicest of people who live in Boston. It's not like sunny side Miami or like the West Coast of the beaches and the bays and stuff like that. And they got all the taxes too, so it's not even like Texas where you can just like write off your play stuff. And so it's not like people were like lining up to go to Boston. So that's my point. So.
Yeah. There's a certain culture there that is unique, but it's kind of its own thing, Yeah.
But also when you want to build for long-term success, you don't want to grab a bunch of free agents and throw them together and say, go win us a championship, because then you become the Miami Heat, where once LeBron leaves, your team is trash now, and you have to rebuild all over again. So I was actually more comfortable with them starting with draft picks, going back to the basics of like, let's get some really good pieces. Let's build for the future. Let's invest in our guys. Let's make sure we keep them around. And we'll, at some point, start knocking on the door again. And that's what they did.
And you had a lot of players step up. You've talked about this lots of times. If you guys have ever watched our live streams, I'm from Oklahoma, so I always talk about Marcus Smart, who played for Oklahoma State. But Jonathan's always talking about, and I agree with him, somebody who is kind of like, in the NBA, he's kind of an awkward player. He doesn't really fit a certain type of, he doesn't really fit a certain role, but he's definitely kind of made himself fit on their roster as a valuable player.
For himself. Yeah.
And some way he's able to stick around and kind of fight. Because I remember his first or second year in the NBA, he was kind of like a lot of talk, but then after that you heard nothing from him. Like it was almost as if he didn't exist. Like I don't remember hearing much about him at all. And then you kind of started slowly seeing him come back and having more of a personality and having more of like a presence on his team. So I find that really interesting. But yeah, I mean, I honestly, I was kind of surprised. I really thought that during the season this year, you guys were going to pick up Isaiah Thomas. And I really did. I was like, is he going to go back to the Celtics? But you guys don't need him. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, not just that. Like he's. I love I don't want to like. I'm not trying to throw any shade on him because he was a great player when he played with us, and I actually really liked his game a lot. But like, he's just a liability. He's too small. Like, that's just like that. You can't get around that. When you get on the court and you're like 5'8", 5'9" in shoes, it's like that's a deficiency you cannot overcome. And in the NBA, when they see you have a deficiency, they're going to attack that every single time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so you can drop 45, but if every other play they're coming down the court and scoring on you specifically, on nobody else but you, and we're having the double team and help off other men and stuff like that, you're causing our whole defense to basically crumble, and you're going to give the other team easy scoring opportunities. So I was okay with us moving on from him. I wasn't okay with the way we did it, but I was okay with us doing it.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk about the recent series of 7 that we saw the Celtics. I mean, we'll talk about the Warriors here in a second, but I feel like there's not a whole lot to talk about. It was kind of expected that a lot of people thought they were going to, win in that series and in the Western Conference Finals. A lot of people, once they saw how they were playing, and they had all their pieces back too with Klay Thompson, everybody was healthy. People kind of didn't expect that they were going to lose. But with the Celtics, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals against the Miami Heat. Would you say that they were an upset?
To make it there?
No, to win. To
win
in the Eastern Conference. No,
I don't think so. I think just because.
Yeah, go ahead.
Most of the so-called analysts had picked Boston to win initially just because of the injuries that Miami was dealing with. So like Kyle Lowry was injured. That's their starting point guard. Somebody else was injured. But anyway, as the series went on, there were more injuries, and a lot of people felt like Boston was the better team. Like just like even if without injuries, like Boston just seemed like the better team. So people were kind of. I think most people were expecting Boston to win, and I honestly think that played against them because they're such a young team, and when you put such huge expectations on a young team that's never been to the finals before, never like actually crossed that threshold.
Yeah,
it cripples them in like big moments. It really does. I think it does. So
because I felt like I heard a ton of people discounting your Celtics constantly throughout the series. I felt like I did, but but then again, who was it on? Crap, I forgot his name. The guy who plays the Golden State Warriors, he said right off the bat that you guys Draymond Green, thank you. He said right off the bat that you guys are going to play the Celtics when they won.
Yeah,
that's who he said.
That didn't do us any favors. That didn't do us any favors.
I'm not saying it did you any favors.
People angry. But he made people angry.
Well, that's what he does.
Angry with
Draymond.
That. And I was like, why would you say that? Like, we're in the middle. We're about to close out this series at home, but you had to go and run your mouth, Draymond. And now we have to suffer the consequences for it. That's not okay. But anyway, whatever.
What do you think about? So what do you think are the negatives about your team going into the finals? Because I think we were talking about this a week or so ago about how they're great at not having back-to-back losses.
Yeah.
But do you think that they're maybe a little inconsistent? Because
yeah, I can say that. I mean, again, this team is like when I say this team is young, like this team is very, very young and very inexperienced.
Have any of them ever been to the finals?
No,
I didn't think so.
There's no person on their team with finals experience except for our head coach. He was an assistant coach on the Spurs when they went to the finals twice. So he has, and he was with I want to say he was with the Nets. He was in the Nets, I think. So he didn't have any finals experience with them. But yeah, none of these guys have ever been to the finals. And like our top 2 guys are like 24 and 25, right? So they're still like very early in their career, maybe like just approaching their prime years. And so I think that's probably the main thing that makes them inconsistent is your top 2 talents being some of the youngest guys on your roster, and also the lack of experience going deep into the playoffs. So I think that definitely drives their inconsistency. But also, the other issues I have is mainly just with turnovers. Like, and that's what you see with young teams is that they get careless with the ball. And when they have a lot of turnovers, it usually are and this is the problem with the team is like when they have turnovers, they're not like okay, like you ran out of bounds, right? Or you had a charge. It's not like just
Mhm.
those kind of fouls or
Mhm.
turnovers. It's like you literally passed the ball to a guy who wasn't even looking for the ball, and so they like the other team just literally grabs it and goes back in easy bucket. Like easy
Mhm.
bucket kind of turnovers is the most frustrating kind of turnovers that you can have, and that's what this team can fall into a lot, especially Marcus
Mhm.
Smart with him playing the point guard. Um, Often he tries to rise above his station where it's like he's like a
Yeah.
16 points a game kind of guy where he'll get you like maybe 7 or 8 assists on a good night.
You can just count on him
Yeah,
to sort of get his, but if he goes
yeah,
over that, it's like you're doing too much.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because
Mhm.
I often can think that he may feel like his talent is a little bit higher than where it
Mm.
actually is at. He like overestimates himself.
Well, yeah, well, he also always seems kind of arrogant. I mean, let's be honest.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
he's got a chip on his shoulder. I mean,
Oh, for sure, for sure.
I think that's why I mean, that's honestly why he, dresses his hair up that way and acts the way he does, right? He likes the spotlight. He's always liked the spotlight. So I think that, but there's nothing wrong with that in the NBA
No, no, yeah,
as
no.
long as you know your role. That's the
Yeah,
thing. And so,
as long as you can reel that back in when it matters. But
yeah.
that's the thing is sometimes he's not able to reel it in because sometimes he feels like, well,
Hmm.
because he's older than our two best players. He's older than Jalen and Jason.
Hmm.
So and he's been in the league longer than them, obviously. So, but I
Hmm.
think like 3 years, 3 or 4 years, he's been in the league longer than them. And so
Hmm.
he kind of feels like he's their big brother. And sometimes he's like,
Uh,
well, if they can't take it over, then I need to step in as the big brother and do the work for them. And it's like,
yeah.
okay, well, that's not your role though. Like you're just a
Hmm.
distributor. Get the ball
Hmm.
into their hands in a good spot, and then they'll get the bucket or whatever we need to get.
Hmm.
Um, so that can be a hindrance too.
Do you let me see here. Do you think that what do you think how do you think they'll do against the Warriors? Do you think that they'll last very long? That I mean, I know I last I heard, what was your take on what was your prediction for the series?
Celtics in 6 is what I
That
said. Now that may not. I'm leaning between 6 or 7. But
hmm
I think it's just going to depend on
hmm
how they play in game 1 and 2. Like if game
hmm
1 and 2 are bad, then you can probably say it's going to have to go to 7. But
yeah.
if each game feels very like close enough to where you could win a game in Oracle, I
hmm
probably stick with my 6 prediction.
hmm
But I don't know. It could be 7. It could if it just to me it feels like if the Suns are going to win, they're going to
hmm
have to win it at home, which is why I'm thinking it has to probably be in 6 because to go to a game 7 in Oracle Arena
yeah.
is a tough place to play. It's just like it's literally on the opposite side of the coast from where you're from. So it's a whole plane ride you have to take the
Yeah.
opposite side of the coast to just play another game.
What are the chances that this goes badly for the Celtics and they come out a little shell shocked in the first or second game and they're not able to get it together because they're a young team?
That's fair. That's fair. But what
What?
I think this team
Hmm.
prides itself in is that they're a defensive team.
Hmm.
And so they're not as reliant on their offense as they are on their defense.
Hmm.
So you can get
Yeah.
shell shocked with offense where you just can't hit a shot. But as long as your
Yeah.
defense is in tune and you guys are talking to each other and communicating and working together, it's a lot harder to fall apart on that defensive end, especially
Hmm.
with like having built consistency through the playoffs. So
Hmm.
I'm playing so many games in the playoffs together and building that continuity of okay, this is
Hmm.
how we talk to each other when we're communicating and how we switch and stuff like that. And also the Warriors have been very known to turn the ball over very frequently. So we're going to get
Hmm.
easy buckets, especially if we just play
Yeah.
our brand of defense. So I'm not extremely concerned about like the pressure being too much or the moment being too big for them.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, so, but we'll see. We'll see. I mean, all I can say is we'll see. I have my thoughts on what I think is going to happen, but everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. So
That's wasn't that Evander Holyfield who said that, or was that Mike
Mike
Tyson?
Tyson.
Mike Tyson. Well, how many steals do they average per game? Do you know? I'm looking right now, just out of curiosity.
No, I don't. I don't
Um,
know.
uh, well, Jalen Brown has the most. He gets 1.2 steals per game. I was just kind of curious, like what their overall was on, like I kind of like to see them on, forcing turnovers and everything like that. Because I agree with you. I think that's going to be their best bet against, because they're not really the greatest you guys aren't really the greatest offensive threat, in my opinion.
No, yeah.
I mean,
No,
I'm not saying
fair.
you guys, you're not trash at all. Like, I'm not saying you're bad. It's just like you definitely see that they rely on their defense. We're saying a lot of obvious things, granted, but it's pretty obvious that this is definitely going to be a offense versus defense kind of take on, which I'm excited to watch, honestly.
It could be though, but
yeah,
the Warriors are number 2 in defensive defensive rating this year, so they're right behind us.
Oh,
so it actually might be a defensive.
I didn't know that.
This is the number 1 and number 2 best defensive in the league, going head to head in the finals. So it's actually, I think this is the first time in like NBA history.
Really? That's ever happened? That's pretty
number
crazy.
1 and number 2 have faced.
Do they still have the Warriors still have Andre Iguodala?
Yes, and he's actually going to be healthy for the series.
Oh, that's great. That's going to be great.
Yeah, but he's an old man. I'm not super concerned about Andre Iguodala like really affecting the outcome of the series. He did against like LeBron's Cavs back in the day. I'm thinking more of the younger guys like a Kevon Looney, who's like, I want to say he's like 24. He's a center for them. He's like a board monster. He grabs a lot of offensive rebounds, stuff like that. Or like Jordan Poole, a great offensive talent wizard guy. So I'm more concerned about those guys, not the older guys. Like the Andre Iguodalas of the world, they're way past their prime. They'll have some impact, but just not enough to like change the course of a series.
Well, I mean, that's big talk. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I always think veteran players like that are so easily discarded, but they kind of, when it comes
game, it's a young man's game.
Yeah, but but also that I think the veteran knowledge and spirit probably comes through a lot better in a final situation.
That's fair.
My only concern, I think, for the series is that Golden State has just a lot more experience. I mean, they have way more experience in the finals, and I think personally, I think in the first 2 games, you'll probably see that more than anything. I mean, Boston could surprise us and win the first game, and it'd be like, oh, snap. Especially if their defense holds up like it has been. I'll be honest, I was kind of surprised that they beat the Heat. Like, really? I really was. Like, I was like, I want the Celtics to win, but I just, now when I saw the 7th game and how they were playing, I was like, oh, I bet Boston's going to win this. Like, you could just tell by how they were playing. They were very hungry.
They got scary for a minute there.
They did.
It got really scary for a minute there. I was like, what is happening? Lord, don't take this from me, please.
I only watched the first half. Which the first half was a little nerve-wracking, but I was like, there's 2 more quarters left. But I could tell the way Boston was playing in those first 2 quarters. I was like, man, they're really like not dominating them, but you can just tell they have the edge.
Yeah.
And so if they play like that and they play hungry, that's always like the younger players' advantage, right? Is like if they come out playing hungry, they can win. But I'm just concerned that the veteran side is going to have a little bit more, knowledge on how to play in the finals. It's just a totally different experience. They're going to have less nerves. They're going to treat it more like, oh, we've been here before. I'm sure a lot of the Celtics will probably be a little. I mean, if it was my first time in the finals, I'd be probably have a lot of nerves. Yeah, but we'll see how it goes. So what's just in case nobody heard, before we go end this segment, what was your take on it? One more time.
Celtics in 6. I'm gonna stick with my take. So I was wrong last series because I said Celtics in 5, but I said that barring injuries, and then the first game, Al Horford, no Marcus Smart. Those first game, and I think the 3rd or 4th game, it was like no Robert Williams, who was like our best defender, and then Bam went off for like 30-something points. So again, barring no injuries, I'm thinking Celtics in 6. I think our defense is just better than theirs. I think they got a lot of older guys who aren't as quick, who aren't as fast, who aren't what they used to be. They're basically shells of themselves. I think the series is going to come down to how well Steph Curry plays, because in most finals he hasn't played that well. Like I can think of like 2 or 3 off the top of my head where I'm like, wasn't the best player on the court.
That's true. Yeah, it's usually relied upon Clay or somebody else to pick up,
or somebody else to have really big games to
Draymond
really kind of pick up slack. And like his shooting percentages are always down in the finals too. So I think it's going to come down to how well he plays. If he plays like, the Steph Curry, the regular, like MVP, unanimous MVP Steph Curry, then by all means, they probably will. They have a better chance to beat us. I'm not going to say they're going to win at all. I'm not at all admitting defeat in no sense of the word, but I'm gonna stick with my Celtics in six.
Well, you heard it here. I'm choosing Celtics in 7, but I will let you guys know I haven't watched the regular season that much, so I'm kind of just going off of what little I've watched and what I've seen. Jonathan
and also his bias.
Jonathan's here, yes, and a bias. Like Jonathan is the person to listen to. Just gonna throw that out there. But I said Celtics in 7. That's kind of my take on it. I think it's gonna be a very bare knuckle kind of basketball series. I think it's going to be long and tiring, but I think it'll be great to watch. So I'm looking forward to it. But anyways, come back to the channel, you guys, and visit us again. We thank you guys for visiting today. Just so you guys know, before we end it here, we are a channel where we kind of cover a little bit of everything. Come back for your we do pop culture topics, superhero topics, entertainment, sports. We do a little bit of life segments, and sometimes we even do some politics or news. So, but besides that, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. That makes me cringe, but we'll see you guys next time on Just Visiting. Thanks again.